Good morning, everyone. I'm Quinn Wisson from Vertical Measures, and I am here hosting VM's monthly webinar series. Today's webinar is titled Your New Year's Resolution, like we needed another one, Boost Your Website Traffic by 97%, and will be presented by our very own Christina Hecht. Christina is a senior SEO strategist here at Vertical Measures, and she works on our clients' projects long-term, helping them set and reach goals, getting to understand their business's narrative as seen through an SEO lens, and producing measurable results. She's pretty good at it as well, might I add. But before I get started and hand over the presentation, I just have a few housekeeping items to note. Today's webinar will be available for viewing by tomorrow, and I will make sure to send out an email to everyone with a link to both the recording and the slides. We'll also be happy to answer your questions, so if you take a peek at your webinar interface, you will see a little section that says questions, where you can ask any questions for me to ask Christina at the end of the presentation. Also, you can ask questions via Twitter using the hashtag VMWebinar. And if you're having any technical problems, really the best way to do it is to sign off and then to sign back on, and usually that fixes the issue. So I think those are all my notes, and I'll go ahead and hand it off to our presenter, Christina Hecht.
Thanks, Quinn. I'm really excited to be doing this webinar with you today, and thanks for your nice compliment. Like Quinn said, I'm the senior SEO strategist here at Vertical Measures, and working on clients long-term is exactly what I like to do, and it's all encapsulated in this case study that we'll present today. I'm a subject matter expert on SEO, and back in 2014, in July, we started working with a particular client that we'll showcase today. We've been working on all kinds of optimization efforts with them, but what we really have enjoyed seeing is the results that we've achieved specifically from doing a gap analysis and improving their content. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And if you want to read more about what I've talked about in the past, you can find me on our blog at verticalmeasures.com/blog, and you can follow me on Twitter at Christina Hecht. All right, so what I want to know is, what's your New Year's resolution? We all have a New Year's resolution. You know, personally, mine every single year is to lose weight and to be more thoughtful and send birthday cards, but I definitely have some SEO resolutions, and you probably do too, whether you're an in-house SEO or the member of an IT team or a marketing team, or even if you're at an agency, you probably have a task ahead of you, this is no small task, but it's to show that SEO works and that it nets ROI. So what we need to do is set some resolutions and set some SMART goals that are specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, and timely. You've probably all heard that SMART goals acronym before, but one of the New Year's resolutions that we had for last year for this client was, and we have for many of our clients, is to increase our organic search traffic by some percentage. So whether it's maybe 77%, maybe it's 97%, like we talked about in the title, or maybe it's 167%. Maybe you've got wild aspirations. So we need to set those goals that are measurable with the percentages and timely, and we want to identify the organic search channel by the percentage. The organic search channel is our what we're going to measure by X% in the first quarter. So we're making them action-oriented and measurable with some objectives. Here's the objectives. We want to identify and plug holes in our existing content. We want to grab ranking share from your competitors, and we want to expand the overall keyword footprint. There we go. So here's what this looks like for our client in our case study. The client's in the education segment, and like I said, back in summer of 2014, we started working with them, and we benchmarked that they had 98 keywords that were ranking in the top 20 in Google, and that was it. So in the spring of 2015, a year later almost, they asked us to take a look at their existing content and do some semantic keyword improvements. So we identified 25 pages that we would improve with their existing content. What we did is we added 187 unique keywords to the pages. Now, obviously, each keyword or keyword phrase, we just counted them along the way just to see, that's what we added. But we ended up seeing a 33% improvement to their overall content depth, because you don't just add keywords, you add content around those keywords. And by summer of 2015, our recommendations were implemented by the client. And in late summer 2015, we took another benchmark measurement. And what we found was that they had 401 new keywords ranking, which is now a total of 499. So their keyword footprint grew 409%. So that's what we want it to look like for you as well. And that's what we're going to talk about how to do that today. In terms of search traffic and page views, this is what it looks like for them with the specific pages that we touched. So we touched 25 pages, and we saw close to a 97% improvement in the number of page views that those pages received after our recommendations were implemented. It was a really big win. And then, as you can see here, their overall traffic was already trending to be way above last year. So we were at 167% increase year over year. And after the implementation of this semantic keyword proofing, that trend continued and we were on the uptick. So you can see that it's really a holistic effort. This one effort that you're going to make with content improvement will certainly help continue a trend, but we know that SEO is not a silver bullet. It's an ongoing solution, something that you have to work on all the time. So let's take stock of where we are today. We can't set goals without knowing where we are. So you need to take stock of your SEO metrics, things like organic traffic, your keywords that are ranking in the Google top 100 or the top 20 or the top 10, your engagement metrics, which are things like time on page or bounce rate, return visits, recency of a visitor is important, or the number of page views per visit. So things like that are your engagement metrics. And then you really need to be realistic about your capacity to get the work done. I mean, most content marketers, we've all gotten the message that you always need to be creating new content and we have to be consistent. But if you're a two-person team on a content marketing team or a marketing team, it's probably not realistic that you're going to create 30 A/B tested and optimized blog posts a month, and you're going to manage your marketing automation software, you're going to produce a great newsletter, and all these things, so on and so on. So this New Year's resolution is something that's going to help you shortcut through some of all that work and find a place where you can really make a measurable impact on your organic SEO. So I think that creating new content is not always possible. It's obviously a best practice, but it's not always possible. So what we're encouraging you to do is look at what you've already made and improve your existing content, because 90% of that work has already been done. You've already made an investment in that content, and we can just try to squeeze a bit more ROI out of that. So figuring out what we already have, we just said the reason why is because 90% of the work is already done, but other factors influence that. The competition may have changed. You may have new players, or they may be doing a better job this year than they were last year with their content marketing and their SEO efforts. Your searcher intent or your user personas may have changed. Maybe your content has started to serve a different audience, or your data is telling you that what you're putting out there is resonating with a different persona than you thought. Or you might have similar content that's now competing because you're creating new content all the time, topics get revisited, and maybe you have two pieces of content that now can be consolidated. So that's a good place to start. You can use some tools to figure out what kind of content you already have. I really like Screaming Frog. It's my favorite tool for doing a quick content audit. If you don't have Screaming Frog, I think you should get it. But if you still don't have it, or if that's not in the cards for you, you can use tools like Google Search Console or Google Analytics to get a pretty good idea about your content inventory. In Search Console, just by the way, the way you would get that is by going to Search Traffic and then Search Analytics on the sidebar, and you would use the Pages report. And in Google Analytics, what you would do is go to the behavior profile or the behavior reports, click Site Content, and then All Pages. And that's where you'll get a download of all the pages that you are getting traffic to. Now, I would caution you to look for things like duplicate content in there, pages that maybe aren't real, and kind of weed those out of your content audit. But Screaming Frog will do a little bit better job for you of finding all of your content. So I just want to show you a little bit about what that looks like. The other nifty thing about Screaming Frog is with the latest update, you have this API access. So you can connect your Google Analytics and your Google Search Console to Screaming Frog so that you get all the data in one place. So what you would do is just follow the steps to connect your account, and then you use the tabs that are available in Screaming Frog to set the right profile or domain that you want to work on. You set the date range there, you can set the segment and the dimension that you want to see. So in this case, you'd be looking for, let's say, organic sessions to all pages. So then you run your report and you get all the data that for each page URL going across the spreadsheet, and you don't have to match up your data in Excel later, which is really handy. And this will help you prioritize which pages, existing pages of content that you want to work on improving. So now that we're figuring out, we have our tools run, we have an export, the steps that we're going to go through to figure out what content we already have is to prioritize those pages. So you want to look for either your top level pages, things that you already know are your money pages that you want to improve. But there's probably also some blog pages or things like that if you've been producing content on a regular basis on a blog. And so you want to ask yourself if old content has met performance expectations. If it did really well the year that it was published, but it has sloped off in recent months, could it do well again? You might want to update it for timeliness. If it was a 2014 post, maybe it's time to refresh for 2016. Maybe you need to update for accuracy. So in our business, SEO is always changing, content marketing is always changing. So we often go back and revisit blog posts where we made recommendations that now need to be updated for, new changes in the industry. You also might want to update for your current user personas. We talked about how your demographics and your profiles of people coming to your site may have changed over time. So you want to use that as one of the things that you prioritize with. Just a quick note, I want to kind of briefly go over what user personas are, because I think it's a content marketing term and maybe some SEOs or other folks aren't maybe familiar with them. But a user persona is basically, portraits of people that you think would be coming to your site. And let's say you've got Bargain Brit, Techie Taylor, and Decisive Dana, because you sell widgets online. So your keyword research and your content would be targeted to those personas and their search intent. So let's say you've got, for your widget selling company, Bargain Brit, and Brit might use the search query cheapest widget, whereas Techie Taylor is looking for required specifications for the widget. And Decisive Dana, the decision maker, is looking for brand A widget reviews. They are pretty low in the decision funnel, and they are ready to make a decision. So those kinds of queries will match up to your different user personas. And those can change over time, as we said. So as you're A/B testing things and your content begins to resonate with one group more than another or one persona more than another, this is something that you want to revisit periodically and using database decisions to make sure that you're meeting your actual human visitors' needs with your content in the very best way possible. All right, so when you see what content you have and what content or the final result that you want, we can see where our content doesn't match up to our searchers' needs or our business goals. What you're doing is identifying a keyword or a content gap. So let's talk a little bit more about the keywords part of that gap. Part of our figuring out where we are today is to do a rankings audit. So we've done a content audit. Now we want to look at our rankings and our keywords. So we want to answer, what keywords are you ranking for, and which keywords should you rank for based on the content on your site, but you're not, like it's just not working for you. And again, we have tools that can help make answering these questions easier. I like SEMrush is a great tool, but again, you can use Google Search Console if you don't have access to SEMrush. And you can also even use Authority Labs. In Search Console, what you would do is, again, go to Search Traffic, Search Analytics, and you would use the Queries report this time instead of the Pages report. And in Authority Labs, if you use that tool, you would be limited to the keywords that you've already input. It doesn't give you a full report of everything that you're ranking for without your knowledge. But at least it'll give you an idea of what you wanted, or what keywords you wanted to rank for, or you probably wouldn't have input them. But you would have a ranking of 0 or over 100 or something. So again, I like SEMrush because it will pull all the keywords that you are ranking for currently, and this is what it looks like. So it gives you a nice, neat report. You can use these filters here to filter by URL, and that's really handy if you're working with a subdomain. Like maybe you have your blog at blog.mydomain.com, or maybe you have an e-commerce store at shop.mydomain.com. One weakness of SEMrush is that it doesn't play well with subdomains right off the bat. You have to kind of know how to filter to get that information, but this is where you do it. You would filter the URL for your subdomain, and then you know all the keywords that your subdomain is ranking for. So we're going to embark on a little bit of keyword research, and if you've ever done keyword research in the last 10 years, the first 3 steps have been the same for time eternal. So the first thing you do is collect input, either from your own gut instincts or you talk to your internal resources, and then you brainstorm a little bit and you start to generate an ideation list. So you just start writing a big list. You're not really editing at this point, you're just writing down every idea. And what you're trying to do is talk to your frontline sales staff. They have great impact or input on questions that people are asking them all the time. The customer service reps are great with this too. They know what your customers are asking and what your particular user personas are searching for offline and sometimes online. So you want to definitely use those internal resources. And then, like I said, you're just going to brainstorm to expand that list a little bit and then dump them all into a big list of keyword possibilities. And then you're ready to move into the next steps. And these have changed a little bit over time, making them more, instead of just using keyword research to determine, I am going to create a page for blue widgets and then another page for blue widgets for sale because they both have search volume. We're really looking more at consolidating into topically oriented pages. So we're going to use tools like the tools that we identified already, but I'll give you some others. And then we're going to just group those keywords by topic and searcher intent. So if I am looking for, I have an example here, 10 ways to survive the summer with kids, then there might be a blog post about that, but there also might be 7 tips on, beating summer boredom, kids summer boredom. So those 2 things are too similar, and we might want to, combine those. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But those have the same search intent and the same topically associated keywords. Then we want to match up the keywords that we found in our keyword research and pair those to existing pages for later semantic proofing, quote unquote, proofing or improvement. And like I said, we're going to consolidate pages if intents are the same. So we're gathering keywords to fill the gaps. We know where we want to be, or where we are and where we want to be, and there's sometimes a keyword gap in the middle. So the tools that we like, I like SEMrush for this. This is a great way to use that tool twice. Keywordtool.io is fantastic. It's basically Google Suggest on steroids. So it has suggestions of everything that people type into Google that are long tail phrases. So like 10 tips on surviving summer might fill in the rest of you for you, like boredom for kids or things like that. So you'll get really nice long tail phrases out of keywordtool.io and Google Suggest. And those are great for answering, for using in like H2 headlines in a blog post or writing more in-depth kind of hummingbird friendly queries. Like hummingbird queries are very like question and answer oriented. So that kind of content tends to do really well with your audience. You can also mine your analytics and webmaster tools. The Google AdWords Keyword Planner tool is an old standby. It's kind of the de facto standard for getting the search volume and the competition for keywords. Although I'll caution you to just remember that that's a PPC tool. It's for paid pay-per-click advertising. So those keywords tend to skew more commercial, things that people would bid on for ads. You're going to do better finding
call back in. Oh, can everyone hear me now? Can you all hear us now? Go ahead and send us a chat message if it's good to go. You're back. Okay, we're back. Sorry about that. I'm not sure what happened, but we're back and we're ready to roll. So Christine, I'm going to pass it back to you.
Perfect. And if you could just maybe, we'll just do this slide again, because I think that's probably where we lost you. But we were just talking about tools to use to gather keywords. Again, I like SEMrush for doing keyword research. It's a great tool. My favorite right now is keywordtool.io. It's basically Google Suggest on steroids. It will give you ideas that people are actually typing into Google that generate those suggestions that Google will make. Like, you know, when you start typing and it finishes the sentence for you, anticipating what you're going to say, that's because other people have searched for that. So Google Suggest and keywordtool.io will provide that data to you and tell you what people are searching long tail related to your content. Google AdWords Keyword Planner tool is the de facto standard. It has been forever, telling us the search volume and the competition relative, you know, for those keywords. But I will caution you that remember that that's a PPC tool. That's for pay-per-click advertising. So the keywords that they generate in that tool and that the search volume and the competition that they're talking about tends to skew more commercial, things that people would be bidding on. So you're going to do a little bit better for looking for ideas in keywordtool.io and Google Suggest. But you can also mine your Google Analytics and your Webmaster Tools or Search Console data for keywords that you're not ranking for that you could do better with. Same thing with YouTube, image search, and BuzzSumo, things like that. If there's content being created about these topics, it's a pretty safe bet that, you know, there's some search volume for it. So don't be afraid to go after keywords that maybe don't have a ton of search volume reported. The other thing that I would want to add to this list is I would take a look at your competitors. I would search for the target term of your page and look at the top 3 or 5 results. Those 3 to 5 pages are likely rife with semantic keywords and supporting keywords that you haven't thought of, and that's probably contributing to them ranking so high. So what you would do is run each of those landing pages through SEMrush and find out what keywords they're also ranking for, and use those as places to pick out the gems and add those good keywords to your list, things that you can see fitting in well to your existing content. So then we just need to prioritize, and this takes some decision making and some time and some thoughtfulness, but this is where all of the research starts to really take shape. So you would prioritize your keywords by value, and by that I mean you're looking for decently high search volume and low competition, again with that caveat that sometimes that data is skewed more commercial. And then you want to group them by searcher intent or user persona. Those two things go hand in hand, and by topic. So you're going to just start making some short lists and aligning them to existing pages for later addition into your content. The leftover keywords that you're going to be left with that didn't quite make sense for improving your existing content will definitely serve as a list for ideation, brainstorming for new content down the line. So we still want you to create new content, but this is just one thing that we're doing to improve our existing content. All right, so I just want to take a little quick side trip and get on the same page about some terminology and some context, or some concepts. So I want to talk about semantics with you. So if you remember the movie Pulp Fiction, there's a scene where Samuel L. Jackson is talking to John Travolta's character, Vincent Vega, and they're talking about Mia Wallace, who's played by Uma Thurman. And this is how a lot of content is written. This is how he talks. Well, the way they pick TV shows is they make one show, and that show is called a pilot, and then they show that one show to the people who pick shows, so on and so on. I won't read it to you, but you can see that there's a lot of repetition. I bet you can probably pick out what the target keyword of this page would be. It's in orange, it's show, and there's a couple of supporting or semantic keywords on the page in blue, pilot and television programs, but that's how a lot of content is written these days. You're really going after a target keyword, but it's pretty keyword stuff, so we're going to look to improve that. So let's talk about target and semantic keywords. Target terms, or head terms, or proof terms, you might have heard those. Those are the terms that are typically included in all articles on the topic. So Google really expects those to be included, whereas semantic terms, which are relevant and supporting, those tend to be synonyms, close variants, and maybe tangentially related terms that aren't always present on every single piece of content about that head term, but they're definitely part of the subtopic. So context really matters here. I'll give you an example. So if the target term with like Samuel L. Jackson is TV shows, then the semantic terms are television programs and pilot. So let's say that your content addresses the fall 2015 TV lineup. It's a blog post that you wrote back in September. Maybe the keywords that you used in your post would be things like shows, episode, television, binge watching. That's something we're talking about. Netflix, networks by name, whether it's a drama or a comedy or a sitcom. So those kinds of terms co-occur with TV show, meaning they're nearby, and they're especially doing that with expertly written content. So expertly written content tends to utilize synonyms and relevant phrases as well as the target term. So if we were to rewrite Jewels of Speech, this is what it might look like after semantic proofing. You can see that we really replaced all but 2 instances of the word show or the target term with lots of different semantic supporting keywords. And what that does is it builds kind of a scaffolding around that target term, and it helps to strengthen and support and push relevance and context around those target terms. So I just want to point out that what that has to do with ranking is that it's highly correlated to top rankings. So every year, Search Metrics puts out their ranking factors, and they found in 2015 that the percentage of proof terms and relevant terms in the top 30 search engine results pages is relatively high and has increased on last year. So they were seeing it more this year than they did in 2014. So high ranking pages tend to be more holistic, meaning that they have that scaffolding of semantic terms surrounding the target term. So when you combine this strategy with rich media or, structured data and things like that, and you extend your word count, you add to the depth, that really can have an impact on increasing your ranking. So like they say, a rising tide lifts all boats. So we think about that kind of groundswell of semantic keywords supporting all the boats of the rising tide. So here's our question. How do we get from this side of the gap over here to this side of the gap? In the case study that we did, this is how it ended up looking on paper. So I told you we looked at 25 pages and we improved them with semantic keywords and greater depth. The content depth, by the way, is also correlated to search rankings. They found that 2,000 plus words has a correlation to the top 10 rankings, and we were improving to the 600 word count level, so that was definitely a step in the right direction. Not every page can have 2,000 words on it. So that greater depth can really improve your engagement metrics as well. It can make people stay on the page longer, be more likely to revisit and revisit often, or share it with others. So that's how it ended up looking with our education clients. And here's their engagement metrics. You can see that they went up. Their time on page, their average session duration went up. Their bounce rate went down 38%. And the percent of exit rate was about the same proportion. So really an interesting way to measure whether this is working, and it's not just tied to keyword ranking. So let's go ahead and put this all together. We've taken stock of our existing content and we've prioritized which pages we want to improve, and we've seen where we have gaps in our content or where our content's not meeting our searchers' needs or our business goals. And we've done the keyword research to kind of plug and fill those gaps. We want to find the best keywords to add to those pages. So this is how we put it all together. I've created a framework for you that we use here at Vertical Measures that helps us map out all of this data that we've gathered. So it organizes the data as you go through the process, and you can download this at the short link there, and then Quinn will actually send the link in the follow-up email that comes tomorrow, right? Tomorrow. Yeah. Okay. So how it works is on the first tab, we've outlined for users and personas, what you would do is put the persona in the far right or far left column, column A, whether that's Techie Tailor or you just call it influencer or decision maker. And we've mapped out the customer journey across the top. And the customer journey, we didn't talk a lot about that, but you're probably familiar with it. It's basically, that you go from an awareness phase to a decision-making phase, and there's some steps in between. And the keywords that fit into different buckets along the way, like blue widgets versus red widgets, is definitely more of a phrase that someone would use if they're further down in the journey, or across in this case, more in the consideration phase versus just the awareness phase. So we want you to start bucketing some keywords according to the user journey. And then from there, there are tabs to put your content audit, your semantic keyword research, and then bring it all together on the final tab, which is the semantic keyword proofing tab. So, and there, what you would do is, if the searcher was looking for, let's say they were looking for leather sofas, that's your customer, and they type in keywords like top grain versus full grain, or that's a keyword you want to go after, you would probably want them to download your free guide. So that meets what you want the user to do, and it meets your business goal of capturing a qualified lead. So that's how we kind of start to map out exactly what the plan would be and improve our content. So this is kind of how it works. So you would use the framework, and you would go page by page and add semantic keywords, meaning, synonyms, variants, and tangentially related terms, things that are closely related. In our TV shows example, that would be TV shows is the head term, and then Netflix is really a tangentially relevant term. It's not a one-to-one. There's kind of a couple steps in between there. For the new content that you might have to add to your page where it's needed, you want to be thinking about, do I need to add new content to meet accuracy or timeliness? We talked about refreshing a blog post because industry things have changed, or now it's 2016 versus 2015. Maybe you need to add more depth to the page. Maybe it was pretty thin with maybe 300 keywords on the page, and you want to add to that. If the content wasn't matching your searcher's intent, you would want to tweak it for that. Or maybe you want to funnel the user to your desired action, like a micro conversion, such as downloading or joining your email subscription list, or downloading a free guide. And then you also want to be meeting your business goals, right? We're here to prove that SEO works and that we can get ROI from it. So you want to meet your business goal of conversion with this improved content. So 3 options of how to make this work, and what to do with your content when you're improving it are, it's not limited to this list, but I think these are the big 3. The first thing you can do is update the post or the piece of content and keep the same URL. So in our TV example, maybe your fall TV pilot predictions post gets updated with winners and womp womp, like things that didn't make it past the first 6 episodes and things that look like they're here to stay. Or the second option is to completely rewrite
Okay, let's see, go ahead.
Okay, so the second option is to rewrite the target terms and keep the same URL. So the variant would just change from, let's say, Prescott New Home Community that you're announcing to New Home Community in Prescott, and that's just a variant. Then the third option is to consolidate 2 pages, like we talked about with summer boredom. There's 2 pages that are meeting the same search intent. You would, let's say, 10 tips on surviving summer with kids and 7 ways to cure kids' summer boredom. Those could be combined into a new mega list of 17 or 20 tips. Maybe you add 3 and republish with a brand new URL. You just want to make sure that you're using a 301 redirect to push those redirect those old URLs to the now new combined one. All right. So workflows, how is this going to work? There's 2 typical ways that we recommend it happen. One of the ways that you can make this all come together is that you would fill in the content gap analysis and semantic keyword framework, and then or if someone else is going to do the implementing, you might want to copy and paste the content of the pages into a Word document and then edit them using track changes to show what your changes are. And you can even use comments to say, why you're making the change, or that you want to add a hyperlink here and explain it more in depth. And then you would hand it off to the implementation team or whomever is going to actually edit the content management system. The second workflow is more independent. Maybe if you're confident with implementing in the content management system, you would still fill in the content gap analysis and the framework, and then just edit directly into your content management system and skip that middle step of having to use a Word document. Okay. So then the real bonus of this is that you get to amplify this content all over again. Google loves fresh content, and Bing does too. We know that the search engines love fresh content. So when you republish freshened content, you're definitely going to want to update and submit your XML sitemap, especially if you've changed some URLs or gotten rid of some URLs. And then submit those to Google Search Console or Bing Webmaster Tools. And then do all the things you would normally do. Tweet it, post it, promote it, amplify it with other influencers that are in your network. And then the bonus is you'll also be earning fresh links to it likely. So it will all of that is going to help push that new content back into Google's attention and Bing's attention and make them take stock of that and say, oh, okay, great. And then maybe they'll rank it higher again like it did in the past. So you always, as an SEO, because we're always tweaking and measuring and testing and then iterating, you definitely want to be benchmarking and measuring. So remember to take your key performance indicators like organic traffic to the pages that you improved as a set. And then you want to look at the organic traffic overall, because remember that this is a holistic effort. It's not just going to improve the pages that you worked on, it's going to improve your site overall. You want to take your engagement metrics that we talked about, like average session duration, bounce rate, and exit. There's many others, but those are just a few. And you want to use Google Analytics or similar to do those first three benchmarks. Then as far as your keyword rankings go, you want to use SEMrush to take stock of how many keywords you were ranking for before in the top 100, the top 20, maybe the top 10. And then after this process is done, maybe a month later, take another benchmark and see how many more keywords are ranking. You want to note the number of semantic keywords that you think you added to the page and just kind of note as you add them. Obviously, with our client, we added 187, but 401 new keywords started ranking, and that's because Google will rank your content for the close variants oftentimes. And if you're doing a good job of being topically associated at the domain level, you may even rank for keywords that don't appear on the page at all. So that's something that you want to note, what you think we're going to add and what actually happened. And then you just want to note the content depth that you added. The word count tools is a great online Chrome plugin and website that you can use to quickly count words. You can use a Word document and their functions to do that. We've done it a couple of different ways. But you just want to mark how much depth you think you added to the page. And then there's probably other KPIs based on your own business goals, conversion, lead, things like that, your other metrics. So there's really literally dozens that you could be looking at. So that's it. Basically, your New Year's resolution is to be more awesome than last year because your improved content is going to start ranking for more keywords and be freshened and put back into Google and Bing's attention. So this is an easy way, simple probably, but not easy, but to go back and use content that you've already created, you've already made the investment, and just try to improve it. Some pages will take 5 minutes to improve, others might take a half an hour if you're adding a lot of content depth. So excuse me, I think that this New Year's resolution is an easy one to achieve and to stick to. And that's it. So I'm available for questions.
Yeah, we've got time. Thanks, Christina. So if you have questions, go ahead and ask them through the webinar interface or tweet us with the hashtag VMWebinar. And thanks for dealing with our little audio blip. I think we have a lot of holiday decorations and it's the elf on the shelf making some mischief. Yeah. So I'll take this first question, but go ahead and send yours as we're going. From Dorothy, she asked, when does a semantic term become a target term?
That's a great question. I think if there's enough search volume, or you find that a semantic term is really got potential to own a whole new piece of content, then I think it becomes the target. I think when it leaps off into ideation, and you can think of that being a new hub and many other spokes for that, if you will, we kind of use that hub and spoke terminology here. I'll give you an example. I think that, let's say that top grain versus full grain leather. That phrase right there is kind of makes me think, oh, there needs to be a free guide about this, about buying top quality leather furniture, something that a PDF that somebody could download. And to me, that phrase that could appear on a page about buying, this leather sofa versus a different leather sofa really could stand alone as its own piece as of hub content that could then have other iterations there, there too.
Okay. And then a question from Elena. Is there a guideline for picking pages to improve based on how much traffic they get? Is it worth improving pages that get little or maybe no traffic at all?
Yeah, I think that we talked a lot about volume, that it did well in the past. So there was something about it that did well. Those are the ones that I would probably prioritize, using traffic as a major metric. But again, if it's something that did moderately well, but definitely could still be timely, that has happened for us on our blog. There's posts like 2015 predictions, SEO predictions. We will do another post updating that to see which ones came true and which ones, what we think is going to happen for 2016. So it may not have done, I don't remember how much traffic it got, but even if it had nominal traffic, it's still one of those things that you're like, hey, that's a great idea to write every single year, is to look at predictions that didn't work out and what we think this year will be.
And then a question from Gabriel. He has HubSpot. So his question is, which tools that you've mentioned could be a complement for this purpose proposed in the webinar? In other words, if I have HubSpot, do I need any of the tools you mentioned?
I think that HubSpot gives you great insight into keywords that brought visitors to your site, much like analytics does. But it's sort of keywords that already happened, where I think the other tools like SEMrush or keywordtool.io tend to push you beyond into that, filling the gap. You already have those keywords in your sort of arsenal, what already was working that shows up in HubSpot. So I do think you need to invest in some other tools. But again, we're in an agency. I know that they can be kind of spendy, and that's not always something that you can spend money on. Keywordtool.io is free. You can have a subscription to it to get a little bit more data out of it, but that's a free one. And I would definitely invest in SEMrush and Screaming Frog. I think those are two, that sort of set of tools are invaluable. And many others are free. The Keyword Planner tool is free from Google, obviously, and analytics and things like that.
Yeah, and I wanted to add, I think HubSpot's really good for finding that baseline of where you are right now. And really seeing, what are the analytics and insights you can get from, pulling a report on what's the top converting blog post, for that type of thing. So I think it really shows, okay, here's where we are now, and then help you figure out where you need to go. I have two really good questions I want to fit in. So this one's from Bill, and he ends it with a smiley face, a winky face. He says, be honest, how much deeper can you make a piece of content on a page in just half an hour?
I think that's what I would do with that kind of content is I would try to convert a paragraph that has, this comma, this comma, this comma. I would convert those into bullet points. I feel like changing the format of some of your content can go a long way to getting into Google answers, the rich answers that show up when you ask a question. I think adding, 2 new subheaders like H2 tags that are hummingbird friendly and more of a question form, that can go a long way, and that's a relatively quick way to kind of improve your content and improve the readability. So if I only had a half an hour, I would say I would look for a place to add bullet points, and I would look for 2 places where I could add some headers, and then and move on.
Yeah. Well, I know Christina has provided me a spreadsheet of my marching orders for some of this work. So I'm going through and basically prioritizing by time it will take to implement, and that's really it. Some of them will take 10 minutes. I mean, it's really not a lot of work. Other ones need a whole complete overhaul. So I'm just looking at, okay, where can we find time within our team's resources to get this done? And some are easy and some aren't. So,
but I'll say the investment into that, even if it is a longer investment, it's much shorter than creating a whole new piece of content from scratch.
Right.
Most of the time.
Which I love.
Yeah.
Last question I'm going to take from a different Bill. How do you scale this to the enterprise level? I mean, is our case study, isn't that enterprise level?
Yeah, it is. And so I think that I would still work with a small set of pages so that you can benchmark, tweak, and iterate later. I think if you go too full scale, it takes a lot of resources to do that, but you can kind of lose, whether it was efficient or not, and go back and make tweaks later. I think that A/B testing obviously is a huge thing in SEO, and so I think if your set is too large, it's difficult to test in this case. And so I would still start small. The enterprise client that we had, they maybe had 46 pages that could have used this treatment, and we chose the 25. So it still was a relatively big proportion of their pages, and they didn't have a ton of content on their site, but it was a manageable number that we could work on.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's all the time we have today. I know I have a couple more questions, so I'll make sure to connect you with Christina, or I'll reach out personally to get those answered. But I want to thank you, Christina, for sharing all your SEO wisdom on us at the end of December moving into 2016. I think that these are going to be really important things to understand and implement next year, so thank you. And then thanks for everyone for coming. Please mark your calendar for January 14th, next month in 2016, where our Director of Business Strategy, Mike Huber, will be discussing how to grow your business with hub and spoke content marketing. And we have a lot of case study examples. We've done this for ourselves and for our clients. So we're going to be talking about how to implement a really comprehensive strategy with a hub and many spokes to really drive some good results. Registration is open for that at verticalmeasures.com/webinars, where you can sign up. Again, I'm Quinn, and from all of us at Vertical Measures, thank you for coming, and we hope you have a great day and a happy holiday as well.